Good morning, guys. Angelo here. Thanks for tuning in again to Real Estate at 8, our live Facebook broadcast. And this morning I'm going to be talking to you about the risks and benefits of buying off the plan. So, look, obviously there's two sides to the coin on any way you look at something, but today we're going to look at obviously off the plan and, advantages and the cons. Okay, so firstly, let's start off with the advantages of buying off the plan. So I guess one of the big advantages is, as a first home buyer, you're often short on cash. So what this allows you to do is, when you're purchasing off the plan, this will allow you to obviously, you'll have an extended settlement period. So this will give you time to obviously come up with the money. So you're not rushed to settle in in a shorter period of time. The other thing is, the maximum deposit for an off the plan is 10%. Okay, so that's when you're purchasing. Now this means that the balance will be due on settlement, which will give you ample time to shop around for a mortgage and look around for the right one. Now the other thing is, as a purchaser of off the plan properties, you may also be entitled to the interest that the deposit has accumulated at the time of settlement. So that's another thing and another advantage to also take into consideration as well. The other thing as well is, you are agreeing to today's prices. Okay, so just do your research again, but by agreeing at today's prices, you've obviously got a good chance of, depending on markets of course, an increase in capital growth, which means you buy at today's prices, and by the time the development's finished, you've obviously should have a lucrative profit. Now the other thing worth mentioning as well is, off the plan properties are customizable to a degree, of course. Each buyer does have their say in the end product of each individual apartment, so you can make a few modifications and customizations to suit your living needs. And the other thing worth mentioning, and another advantage, is in Australia you do have a 7-year builder's structural guarantee. So that will obviously ensure that you're covered for any construction issues that may arise in the future. That shouldn't happen when you're buying brand new, but I guess peace of mind, it's good to have. Okay, so I guess they're really some of the benefits there when you are buying off the plan. Now let's look at the risks, and obviously a lot of the risks I will touch on will sort of counter the advantages. So again, when you are buying off the plan, I must reiterate, make sure you do your research, and comprehensive research at that. So when you're buying off the plan, looking at the risks now, one of the big risks is completion date is not guaranteed. If the project does not go forward, the developer may very well file for bankruptcy, which would not be a good thing obviously if you're purchasing. So just on that, I would make sure that you do your research on the developer and make sure that who you're buying from is credible. Do Google reviews, ask around, do research on the company, look at other projects they've done, ask residents in those projects what they think. When you're spending that sort of money, I'd make sure you do thorough research. So just be careful who you're buying from, right? Now, the other disadvantage is, the end result may very well be different to what you had anticipated. When developing, unexpected issues often do arise, and it very well is within the developer's rights to make necessary changes to complete the building. So they may change building size within a 10% range, for instance, or there may be an issue with the site, and they've got to, going back to our delay, they've got to obviously factor in that the building and construction will take a lot longer than normal. So, there's a lot of things you've obviously got to be wary of there as well, because there are unexpected issues. It doesn't all go according to plan. Now, as I mentioned, as a positive, you're buying at today's market. On the flip side of that, the market could indeed turn. Okay, so let's say, for instance, there's pockets out there where there's been an oversupply and overdevelopment of apartments, that you do run the risk of prices plateauing and perhaps correcting backwards. So you do run the risk of not actually, obtaining capital growth, but actually leaving you out of pocket and going backwards. Now, the other risk that with your settlement, you may very much struggle to settle because you may have problems with the banks lending you money. Obviously, because the valuation will be very different to what you had anticipated upon purchase. So just be wary that if you are buying off the plan, make sure you've got sufficient money, and you're in a position to really, if it does go backwards, you're in a position to protect yourself as well, just in case as a worst case scenario. So just be wary of that. Now, it's also with off the plan properties, it's also very difficult to measure the resale value. So, in saying that, it's very important to look at the development in the area, to see what's happening, to see what other apartments are going up, or house and land packages, whatever it may be. So you've got to be very careful and very wary of that, because that will obviously, the more people have to choose from, basic economies of scale here, the more supply, the less demand. So do your research on the area and have a look at what's being developed and what effect this will have on your purchase. Another disadvantage is you do run the risk of disappointment. So what you're looking to buy may not very well be the finished product, because you're not seeing it for what it is now. You're anticipating it to be built in accordance to what you viewed on a picture or a virtual tour or whatever it may be. So just be wary of that as well. And one of the other risks I would of buying off the plan, basically, development time frames can very much be delayed, and it's very much in the developer's rights to do so. So, there are just a few things worth mentioning as well. So, look, they're the pros and cons for both sides. I guess at the end of the day, just exercise with caution, do your research, do your due diligence. Don't take your word for what the developer is telling you. Obviously, they're there to sell their product, which, don't get me wrong, what they're selling may very well be credible, but don't take their word for it. I mean, do your independent research and just make sure what they're telling you lines up with what you've heard elsewhere. So I guess that pretty much wraps up, the pros and cons for buying off the plan. Now, again, I'm Angelo Lambropoulos, Director of Lambros Realty. If you have any further questions regarding this topic, you're more than welcome to call our office on 02-8628-7128. Alternatively, you can email me at info@lambrosrealty.com.au. Now, in a fortnight's time, being Wednesday the 16th of November, we're going to talk about how to make sure your offer reaches the home seller when purchasing. So for those disgruntled buyers that aren't sure if their offers are being submitted to sellers when you're talking to agents, it may very well be handy to watch that video, because we'll show you how you can bypass that. So I thank you once again for tuning in to our live Facebook broadcast, and I will see you in a fortnight's time.